Not black or white. It's not black or white with Tim Stevenson and Diane Blakely.
Tim, you know how I feel about that.
I do.
I am sick of the Democrats' poor messaging about themselves. I mean, Democrats are the party of the people.
People.
That's right, people. And I think when the Democrats get in tune with that, they'll do a lot better. They're the only ones that bash themselves.
Right.
You know, I mean, I know that our illustrious president loves to call us radicals. I mean, this is the most idiotic thing I've ever heard, to call people who care about healthcare, people who care about.
Well, there are radicals, though.
There are.
There are. And I think what happens is it's both parties get lumped into the same radical mindset.
But I think there's more radical Republican people, and maybe they're more MAGA than Republican.
What we should do, this is going to be controversial to some people for me to say, we should take all the MAGA people.
Uh-oh.
And we should take all the pronoun people and put them in the same arena and let them talk to each other.
Oh, I don't think it'd go well.
Just the radical ones, because there's some that are way more radical than others. But let's just be honest, some of it is crazy. I saw a woman tell a reporter, some guy on the street, that her dog was non-binary.
Oh, okay. So
that's a radical point of view.
So this is also an age thing, right? So like
Probably,
my son's a Gen. I don't think the radical thing is an age thing, but I think the pronoun thing is definitely a Gen Zer thing. Like my son, like sometimes I get lumped in the old people realm because I'm not willing to accept plurals for singulars. And I get why the younger people want that. They don't want it. I mean, we could do a whole conversation here today about the way Gen Zers sort of behave, like how they behave in the workplace, how they're like,
right.
Oh, I'm not showing up to work. You didn't say what I want you to say, and I'm going to ghost you, which is what has been happening. A lot of employers are like, oh my gosh. It's the same thing with the pronoun stuff. And, you know, I have really good friends whose kids are very insistent on us using pronouns to describe them. But I politely say, I'm not going to call you a they if you're a singular person. It doesn't work for my generation. But I'm not going to stop you from doing it.
No, they can do whatever they want.
If you want 100%. To talk and refer to yourself that way.
Right.
But it's really hard for me to get on board with that. And one, it sounds grammatically incorrect to me.
Right.
And I understand the idea behind it. I really do. Mm-hmm. And there are some people who don't want to identify of any gender. And I think we both are kind of in the same space on that, where you're like, you're born a gender, you have a gender on your birth certificate. Whether you decide that's the gender you're going to be in your life or say you are, that ends up being up to you. And, you know, I'm all about letting people express themselves the way that they want, as long as they're not hurting somebody else.
Right.
You know, and I don't mean like you're hurting your parents because you're not saying that you're not doing what they want. I don't mean that, but I mean like you're not like causing anybody, you know, significant harm. But it is hard for me. Mm-hmm. And I'm a more liberal person. Sometimes I refer to myself as middle left, but there are other people who would say, oh, she's super, super left, like way in the left side. But there are certain things. I mean, we've talked about allowing men who decide to become female, identify as female, being in sports with women. And I absolutely disagree with that. And it's a physiological reason why I disagree with that. I disagree with it because I think it makes it so that a female, born a female, with a female heart that pumps to its extremities at a female heart rate, cannot compete with somebody who was born with the heart of a male.
Right.
It's just not fair. And I have a lot of liberal female friends who agree with that position.
Right.
But I mean, I have a lot of other friends who are probably a little bit more liberal, and they're like, oh, that's terrible. But
it's not. I mean, okay, let's just put this in a perspective, right? If you are a male swimmer, and let's say you're competing at the highest level in the male category, and you're always at the bottom 20.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you go to the female side and you're in the top 2. What do you think the difference is?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're just physiological.
It's just a difference in your body, is a difference in it general. That's why with the men, you're at one level, and with the women, you're at a completely different level because it's different.
I know. I forget what show I was watching, but it was kind of like one of those competition shows, you know, where in order to get to the next level, you have to be like rolling big tires and pulling big giant ropes. And there was somebody on there that used to be a man. Now, I will say, in this situation, the producers had done a really interesting thing because they found the tiniest of men that became a woman with the largest female they could find.
Right.
And the female beat him.
Well, of course.
So this goes to your point.
Yeah.
Because you said there's going to be those outliers.
Oh, and there is. So it's not across the board. It's just there are some phenoms and things like that happen. And no one says that, oh, a woman can't swim faster than a man. That's not the point. The point is in the highest level of those sports, you know, if you moved one from one to the other, it would just be a different dynamic altogether.
Right.
Based off of their
like Michael Phelps next to the number one, and I'm super bummed I can't remember her name. She's amazing. It'll come to me later. I'm having all these moments. I hate to say it, but they're like senior moments where I can't remember.
They're senior, the ARRP moments.
And I can't remember what her name is, and I should, and I feel really guilty about that because she's amazing. But she's like considered, she's been in the Olympics multiple times, and I can picture her too. But I think if you put Michael Phelps in his heyday next to her, he would crush her. Right. Just based on his physiologic stuff. And that's why they have men's sports and women's sports, because that's why women golf from. Right. Why I like golf, folks. One, I don't like to get burned and stand out in the blazing sun. But secondly, I hate having to tee off from the weenie position. Right. So why do they still have that? Right. Right. Because women can't drive the ball as far. Hey, and I can drive the ball. No one's pissed off at golf, right? Is anybody pissed off at golf? No, they are not. Right. No one's going to a golf course right now and going, hey, how come the women's tee? I don't think anybody that's transgender, that's not even transgender, just equality, right? Well, yeah, but how come they don't do that? I don't know. I don't think anyone gets mad because they really understand. Like, I can drive the ball really far for a female, right? But if I was golfing with, you know, a bunch of men, I would never catch up to them. I could never. And again, of course, there's a woman or 10 women or 20 women that can outdrive some men, but statistically, men drive the ball farther. I know. Right? You're correct on that. And so, I mean, I think what's starting to happen, and I don't know if it's, you know, just lately, like I told you, like yesterday was a heavy day for me. Like I just felt like if it was going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong. It's probably safe for me to stay inside because I was like, wow, how come the world feels like it's falling on my head? But at the end of the day, you know, things kind of started to turn themselves around. Good. But I think part of the weighted reason I felt so stressed yesterday is because that wonderful man that sits in the White House was busy doing what he does best, firing people. Again, so he fired Pam Bondi, right? Yeah, and I can't stand her. But I thought, you dumb woman. What I don't understand is why people think he's not going to do it to them. It's getting ridiculous. I mean, she literally, like we talked on the other pod, we talked about how she acted like an infantile toddler. And she's like, you're a failed lawyer, when she was being interrogated by Congress. Right. And she was brutal. But I think he thought you didn't do a good job defending yourself. Like she couldn't keep her story straight. Then she started talking about the stock market. If you looked at the stock, when talking about Jeffrey Epstein, which I just thought, are you an idiot? Like you can't even, nobody cares about the stock market when you're talking about child trafficking. And, you know, maybe she has a law degree, but I can out-talk that woman. I would not stand in front of the esteemed body that was interviewing or, you know, sort of, I guess interviewing is a lightweight way of saying what they were doing. They were basically interrogating her, but I would come prepared. I'd have some really good notes, and I wouldn't have to look at my notes either. I would know exactly how I was going to defend my job, like what I was doing. And if it required that I said, I've been doing this at the beckoning of the president of the United States, he'd go down in a little puff of smoke. Imagine if she had done that instead of placating him and looking like an idiot. Folks, he doesn't care about you. He does not care about other people. He doesn't care about anything except for keeping his own bacon off the grill and causing destruction. Like today, one of our aircraft was shot down.
Right.
And as of just a few minutes ago, they still haven't found the second pilot.
Found one pilot.
Yeah, the pilot that was flying the plane ejected, but the guy who handles the firing part or the bomb dropping, I'm not sure exactly what his job is other than to shoot militarily at objects and to keep them from shooting the plane down. So, and he ejected and they can't find him. And I'm just amazed that, we're in the situation we are in, that I mean, I'm not going to forget the fact that we have 13 dead service people.
Yeah.
My dad was in the military. I care about military people. Another thing that people seem to think does not go with being a Democrat. I care about law enforcement. I care, and let me tell you why a Democrat would care about law enforcement. First of all, we help fund them, the taxpayers. So the next time you start crying about your taxes, just remember that, for all those conservative people who are in the fire department or on the police force, next time you start squawking about social programs and, and how we're a socialistic country, remember how you're getting paid, because you're getting paid because of that.
I think it's interesting when people label it that way, like you're not for law enforcement.
It's ridiculous.
When law enforcement is having a rally or whatever, or firefighters are raising money, no one's going, I'm not giving to you because I'm a Democrat or Republican. They're just giving because they believe in the fire department.
Yeah, because if your house gets on fire, you want them to come help you.
Exactly. Same with the police. We call 911. We don't go, don't call 911 unless you tell them what party you're on. You just call 911.
Don't come help us. We're Democrats.
Right.
Don't come help us. We're Republicans. I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing ever. And like, I'm in this massive campaign to straighten out the wrinkles in the lines that have been drawn. Because right now, if somebody talks about the police department, if they talk about supporting, the police or flying the flag, or, like, give me a break. I think regardless of the party, you should be able to embrace both those things. But to sit there and say that that's a Republican thing, supporting the military is a Republican thing, that is a crock of crap.
Right.
And it really makes me mad that Democrats don't stand up and say that. What they need to keep saying, like I said, we are the party of the people.
People.
That's right.
They're a party of the people.
Yeah. It really matters to me because we're the party that cares about health care. We care about whether or not children are getting food, in the Head Start program, if they're getting breakfast and lunch. I mean, for those of us that were alive and endured COVID, that was a really scary time for poor children, because poor children always were guaranteed breakfast and lunch. And today, the illustrious orange beast that sits in the presidency, I'm sorry, I just dislike him to the nth degree. And I have reasons why. It's not because I'm a Democrat, because believe you me, I wasn't against George Bush Sr. I thought he was a great president. I wasn't against Reagan, although I couldn't vote for Reagan. I was too young. But I really liked him. My grandfather was friends with him, So I didn't have any, terrible things to say. In fact, I was a Republican for years. I mean, there was no way on God's green earth I was a Republican when Trump decided to run, because I hate to remind everybody, Donald Trump was a Democrat before this. And why was he a Democrat? Because he loves the Hollywood thing. That's why he's making almost everything that happens into a reality TV show. The problem is we're doing it at the risk of American people's finances and their lives. And when you have an administration where you hire clowns to run important things like our healthcare so that we don't have massive disease. Folks, we eradicated measles and mumps. And now we've got somebody who's heading up our healthcare system that doesn't care about vaccinations. I mean, if you don't want to get a vaccination, that's fine, but do not put children at risk. When they eradicate, I mean, do you know anybody our age that had measles?
No.
No, you don't.
I don't.
And you know why you don't? Because we all got vaccinated for measles. That's why you don't see measles. Now you see measles. There's well over 1,000 cases of measles happening because people are trusting that the government is saying the correct thing to people. They're saying, hey, you don't need to do that. Or it causes autism, which, by the way, was a hoax. I'll stop my diatribe and let Tim talk for a second. I get all worked up.
I'm listening.
I get worked up. I mean, clearly you guys have realized at this point that I'm the one that gets all hot and bothered, about everything. And Tim just sits there and goes, let her
just
go.
assessing everything. That's what I do best.
It does make me upset that, we're putting things that are really important at risk, and putting the lives of people. And because I have a son who's going to be a senior next year, and he will in May be 17 this May, and then in a year he'll be 18. I don't want a draft instituted. I have no doubt that if Trump doesn't get what he wants, he will use the lives of our young people, and he'll step right on top of them.
And by the way, when they enact, God forbid they enact the draft, they don't ask you what political party you are.
No,
they just say if you're a man under the age of this, this, and this.
Do you want to know one thing that they do? If you go to a private school, they don't make you sign up. Do you know that? That's something that they do in public schools.
Yeah.
So again, they think, well, elite people. I could send my son if I thought that would be something that would stop it from happening. I could send him to one, but he has asthma anyway, so I'm not really worried about him being on the front lines of things. However, I still think that it should be someone's choice whether or not they want to join the military and fighting. I never understood Vietnam, Tim. I never did. I mean, you and I were too young. You were definitely.
My dad was in Vietnam.
Yeah. So you and I were too young to experience the full throttle of it. I remember, people were saying, and I like Jane Fonda, just so everybody knows, but there was a thing that they used to say, I'm not fond of Jane. And they did it because she was in Hanoi and she was saying stuff that was against the American government. And so people who were fighting for the American government were really irritated with her. Don't talk crap about us when we're on the firing line, in Vietnam. But she thought, and I've come to understand her position better. This is what being liberal means, folks. It means that I want everyone to do a little homework and type in liberal and see what the definition is. Because what it actually means, it means that you will take information in and change your point of view. So it's a good thing. Liberals, the people that you're calling radical people, because Trump calls all of us radicals. He's not going just the fringe.
Well, now he's calling his own radicals.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's two sections to the Republican Party. I think there's real Republicans, how he always says rhinos, Republican in name only. I'd like to say Republicans in name only for sure. The real Republicans, figure out how to say it a little bit differently. They're real Republicans. They're people that believe in conservative, on a fiscal front, and they're conservative on, a lot of it stems from budgetary stuff, but it used to have a moral clause to it.
Right.
The Republicans were like, we're the party of the family. I don't think that any of that is true. And the reason I don't think it's true now is because Trump has had one go around politically already, one term, and now he's furthering it more now, and he's destroying the GOP. I have friends that used to be Republicans, and they're just they feel very lost. I don't have a party. I have a friend.
Right. I was just going to say that. I was just going to say, do you think Donald Trump has kind of ruined the overall meaning of being a Republican?
I think he has. I think what people think being but I also think the Republicans that are still the conservative, fiscally conservative people, they've allowed it. They didn't stop it. They've had multiple times to say, this isn't okay with us. Like Mitch McConnell, he stood up there after January 6th and he had an opportunity to say, and he did, that wasn't acceptable. But they had an opportunity to get rid of him at that point. But they were so selfish, wanting to keep their job and also keep the flow of Republicans at that time, what they were doing. They wanted to not disrupt it or have any fractures in their party, that they allowed for a second time for this nonsense. And as people die, and let me just say this, no one, including myself, wants to be right about this. Nobody wants to be right about that. Who wants to be right about when service people get killed? These are young people with families, with children, tiny children too. They're like people just starting out their lives,
Right.
And now we've got this like crazy thing happening again. And not one of those Republicans is standing up. And if they do, they're doing this. They're standing up, which I applaud that they do it at all. But then they're like, I'm not running again. So what would be bolder is if they were like, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to stay and I'm going to fight for the things that are right in our party.
Right.
Because you guys are watching your party shrink to a small majority of MAGA people. And because the president doesn't have a line, this man doesn't have a line. And you know who else I blame? I blame John Bolton. He was all about promoting his book and with his big fluffy mustache. He makes me so mad. He knew because he was in the room when it happened. That's the name of his book.
In the room where it happened. Sorry.
Yeah.
Not a Hamilton moment.
Yeah. He was in the room where it happened.
Right.
He warned people all over the place that Trump would be worse the second time around. But he wasn't willing to cast a vote for something that was considered safer. Because whether you get on board with having a Black woman as president, you should get on board with yourself and stop talking, because I'm so amazed at humanity. I'm amazed that human beings, I don't think, and let me also be clear, I don't think I'm 100% right. I don't. There are things, but unlike some, I will say if I make a mistake. So feel free to call me out if I make a mistake and I'll correct it. Right. But generally, on the human front, like how I care about others, I'm not wrong about that.
I think a lot of people are righteous these days, right? They're more hell bent on being right in their mind or being right than saying, "Oh, I could be wrong about that." You know what I mean? So they hold on to, well, this is what I have chosen to believe, therefore there is no other way. So then they become like, I call them like surface martyrs for their cause, right?
Surface martyrs,
because they only go so far. You know, people are like, I'm all about this to a point, right? So, for example, if you are anti-vax, let's just use that as an example, and you're like, yeah, anti-vax, if you get vaccinated, you're this, you're that, and the other. The reason why I call most of them surface martyrs is because if they go out to eat and there's a man and the chef in the back that happens to be vaccinated and he's making your food, you're not asking the restaurant whether or not the dude is vaccinated.
No, I don't think anyone.
When you go to a grocery store, when you go into the gas station, are you like making sure you wipe down the thing so in case the guy before you was vaccinated or not? So the martyr is just on the outside. They just have this belief system that I'm right about it.
So it's interesting you say that. So you and I had different reactions to that. Like you did not choose to get the COVID vaccine. Right. And I did 3 times. But I'm also going to say that the reason I did it is because I was surrounded by my mother, who is an older person. And she when she gets sick, she generally gets like a really bad, like bronchial cough. And I wanted to see my mother. And so I felt like if I want to see my mom, and let me tell you, the great lengths that I went to do it, I was shielded, masked, gloves. I mean, I looked really silly. But my mom never once got COVID. I got it 3 times because people brought it to me because I was like down and out. The first time I got it, I was like a long hauler. So then I was like, oh my God, I'm like Rip Van Winkle. I want to sleep all the time. It had this really weird effect on me where it made me want to sleep all the time. So for me, I was like, everyone's getting vaccinated. Now, if I didn't have that experience, would I have been, I mean, I literally drove to LA to the hood.
To the hood.
I did go to the hood.
Compton. Just kidding.
It was.
Was it Compton?
It was somewhere close to Compton.
Nice.
So, and my
Yeah.
sister's like, I know all these doctors that are giving out the vaccines that other people didn't show up to get.
Oh.
So I called my friend Kim and her husband, and then my sister, you know, so first my mom got to go to Sorrento Valley in San Diego.
Okay.
And Donnie Edwards, the football player, and his wife were doing all these shots, excess shots. So if you were older, you could get, but I wasn't old enough to be in that thing. But I sent my mom there because I wanted her to be safe. And so then the next opportunity was in the hood. And I called my brother-in-law, Frank, and, you know, and they're asking us all the questions, you know, like, do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have like any autoimmunes? Of course, I won't say who, but one of us, not me.
Yeah, narrow it down.
Was not saying what autoimmunes they had because they wanted the shot. You know, did those shots. So now, you know, fast forward to, you know, now, did the shot, I often wonder, did the shot help me get cancer or did COVID? I don't know which one. Had I not gotten the shot, I would have been able to say, oh, COVID helped me get there.
Right.
You know, because I truly believe that's why there's an uptick in cancer and diseases in people is because of either their exposure to COVID. I'm not a scientist and I'm not a doctor, so what I know about it makes me think that the shot was helpful because it was using mRNA, which was studied for decades at City of Hope to fight cancer. So, and that shot was designed like that. So I don't know.
What are your thoughts? This is a random take, right? What are your thoughts on the difference between believing in a COVID shot and believing in chemotherapy?
He asked me a very interesting. He did it on purpose. So my point of view changed, and I'll tell you what I thought the difference was. One, in a previous life, I was with somebody who did.
This is a real life, not a fake life.
Yeah, a real life.
Like she was a butterfly.
Yeah, right. Yeah, a real life previously.
Yeah.
My mate was a fundraiser, a big time fundraiser VP for City of Hope Medical Center. And so I had a lot of exposure to the wonderful things that those research doctors do. Right. And one of them is the development of mRNA, and they've been using it for decades to fight certain cancers. So they already understood how mRNA worked for 30 years. So the basis of the COVID shot is built around mRNA. And so I wasn't afraid of that because I knew that they had been using it on sick people that survived. Gotcha. So I wasn't afraid of the shot. Now I'm going to add in the chemo part because it's going to seem strange to people. So I had the lovely opportunity to use chemo, which I wasn't going to do. And the reason why I would be willing to do the vaccine and not chemo is that I know inherently chemo is poison. It kills all your cells. mRNA in the vaccine doesn't do that. It doesn't have those kind of properties. That's not how that shot is developed or used. Chemo is, and they don't mince it about chemo either. When you are facing the option of chemotherapy or they're suggesting it, for me, it was like a 5% benefit. And I said, no way. They also used a scoring apparatus that had a study that had no people like me in it. No hormone therapy users, not one. They excluded them from it because it would alter your score. So I became a gray patient. I didn't think I was a gray patient. I thought it was very clear. It was black or white for me on whether I'd do it. But chemotherapy, when you are faced with that, they give you what they call a chemo class. I thought, go sit in a class with a bunch of people. Instead, it's a one-on-one class with the PA of the medical oncologist, and they give you a binder. And I swear to God, it's like this thick, and it details all the horrific crap that's going to happen to you. Mouth sores, your your hair is going to fall out. You're going to get neuropathy in your feet, your hands. You could have, it's countless terrible, awful things, and then you're going to be very, very sick. And it's so sick that if you get the common cold, it can kill you. So, no, I did not do that. And let me also be fair to the people who are listening, because I'm not recommending you don't do chemo if it's in your lymphatic system or you've got like some ridiculous stage 4 thing happening. At early stage ductal carcinoma, I'm going to need my fan. Well, like because this makes me feel very like.
But like any condition, everybody is on the spectrum of life, right? So what might work for you might not work for the next person, and so on and so forth. Even generally speaking, right? You can say, okay, well, for instance, I've never got the flu shot. I also don't get the flu. But some people need the flu shot to not get the flu. So
or they're older.
So
for older people,
depending on your body, your blood type,
I don't get the flu shot either. Just so you know.
We'll see. There you go. Right. So,
will I do it when I'm really old and I might have trouble fighting the flu? Yes, I would consider it. But at this juncture, my mom always says, get the flu shot, get the flu shot. My sister didn't get the flu shot. She got the flu, but she travels a lot. So I may be eating my words. Going to Cancun. Going to Cancun.
Oh, look.
Again.
Apparently that means if you're watching this and we actually keep this in, the balloons were on our screen because apparently it is like a reaction to the phone or the computer when you say things like surprise. Then all of a sudden there's balloons. Right.
That's so weird. Yeah. So let me dovetail back to what you were saying about the difference between the chemo and the vaccine. So and there was a risk. Because people did not know for sure how an individual would react. Like, there was Moderna, was it Moderna?
Something like that.
Moderna and then Pfizer.
Yeah, a couple.
If I'm saying
Johnson & Johnson.
Johnson & Johnson was the third, and people who got Johnson & Johnson, some people had bad reactions to that. Right. But some people also, I think it's Moderna. If I'm saying it wrong, because I'm probably crisscrossing it with a cream that I use for radiation. I think that was Moderna. It was
something like that.
Oh, it's so long ago. Yeah. I'm glad I don't remember. Right. But there were 3 different vaccines. I had Pfizer. And I didn't have any weird reaction. Other people. So this just goes to your point. Mm-hmm. And I've learned this about myself. Everybody's an individual. So I think when healthcare turns itself around and starts to say, let's look at the person as an individual. The problem is our healthcare system is so congested with people, sick people too. And all this could be really changed around if people stop looking at Democrats like they're the evil spawn, because Democrats care about like making sure people have health care. I remember, and forgive me, Bernie Sanders, because I literally thought you were a radical lefter. And I'm a Democrat. And now
not the radical left.
I know. And now I actually go, he used to always say this thing, and I remember Frank's friend Luke was really into Bernie Sanders, and I'm like, vote for Joe Biden because Bernie's too radical. And Luke, this is for you, because I could hear Bernie saying in my head all the time now, healthcare is a human right. And until you get sick, and you really need your health care, you don't realize what he's actually saying. If you're a healthy person, which up until, a year and 4 months ago, I never had a care in the world. I rarely got sick. I always say my body's like a machine. I don't break easily. I had a, 1,000-pound horse fall on me twice and nothing broke, and I kind of was like that my whole life until suddenly I got ductal carcinoma, and I'm like, oh my God, and when you get sick, then suddenly you start to, it's like with anything, and Frank will say this, people will hang on to their position until they're faced with something, right?
Right.
Until it comes to, as Frank likes to say, till it knocks on their door, till it arrives at their doorstep. And I think, we're all human and people are like that. They're like, oh my God, like I always use Dick Cheney as an example. Also, he's passed away, so he can't get mad at me. But
God bless
Dick,
yeah.
Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
Well, Dick Cheney's daughter, Liz Cheney, it's known that she's married to a woman. I want to correct myself. I think she's married to a woman. I know that she has a partner. Okay. She does not have a male partner. She has a female partner. And it wasn't till his daughter came out and said, hey, I like women. He was so against that. His policies were against that. His policies were against his own child until he suddenly realized that his policies affected his own family.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people are like that. They're like, unless this affects my family or me, but let me just say, if these policies are not affecting you at this point, you must live on Mars because you're not paying. And bless the hearts of the family and friends that I have that think that that gas prices are a condition here in California of California policy. They were, but now it's worse. So, I mean, we have a gas tax, right? Here in California. So our gas is inevitably higher than anybody across the country. But our gas is $1, 80 cents to $1 more around the whole entire United States. So if you're used to paying $2 or $3, let's just say it's as low as that, which I don't think it's been as low as $2 for a long time anywhere. But if you're used to that, well, you're probably unhappy now that you're paying $3 if it was $2. And if you were paying $3, it's 4 other places. And you're unhappy.
5, 6, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Which, suddenly that comes to roost, right? So I have family an hour away. Like my sister lives in LA, and then my husband's family lives in San Diego. So now, via getting 20 gallons of gas there and about, cost me $28, almost $29, $129. So now, if I want to go visit somebody I love, those directions, I have to really think about it. I have to think, how long am I going to stay? Am I going to go early? Am I not going to go because I don't want to go and then I really have to go sometime?
Right.
Because that's a lot of money to pay for gas. Before I could fill up my gas tank for like $68, $70. Now I can't.
Nope.
So, when you think about how much food costs, right? Like people's bills are just going up and up. And this president, and I didn't like him. I'm not going to sugarcoat that suddenly I just don't like him recently.
Right.
I don't like him, period.
I liked him on The Apprentice.
See, I didn't even like that show because I thought
I just thought it was funny.
Really?
I thought it was funny. But
You're fired.
But it's just because I knew people like that type of personality, like the arrogant guy.
Well, you've been in the Hollywood scene.
Yeah.
So you know more. Like for me, I just was like, I just don't like him. I think he's arrogant. I think he's kind of not very smart.
Yeah.
And I'm going to correct myself on the smart part. He's not very smart about important things. However, he is brilliant at marketing himself.
Well, of course.
He's brilliant at name calling. He's brilliant at getting people to divide themselves. He's brilliant at just being a massive self-interested person financially. He's brilliant at all those things. He had what I call his apprentice time the first time he was president.
Right.
And now he learned all the loopholes. He learned, and this is so crappy. I don't know if people know this, but when Joe Biden went to the White House, they leave the keys behind there with, I don't know if it's the sergeant of arms or what they call him, but he's posted at the White House. And Trump made sure to not leave the key for him. Make sure that Joe Biden and Jill couldn't get into the White House when they returned. I mean, what a jerk. Fortunately, Joe Biden had been there before, and he's like, "Oh, there's one in the back," you know. So
there's still a key under the doormat.
There's still a key, you know. But I mean, it's those kind of things where you're like, what, you know, you want the leader of your country. And I don't care if he's a Republican or a Democrat, but you want to feel safe about him. You want to know that he actually gives a rat's ass about you.
Mhm.
You want to know that he cares about, like, you don't have to like Joe Biden's policies, but he's a nice person. I don't care what you say about how he ended up at the end. And that debate was horrific. And I don't think anybody else, I mean, honest to God, I like left the room. It was so awful to watch.
Mhm.
So whatever was wrong with him, his handlers did not shield him properly.
Yeah.
You know, and you need to tell the American people, if your president isn't, you know, got sundowners and isn't really all together between the hours of 6 and 11 p.m. And you need a president that's can do a 24-hour thing if there's a crisis in the country.
Right.
But there's a crisis every damn day now.
Every day is a crisis.
Yeah.
There's so much crisis. We forget about the other little things that were at the top of the news. Since the Epstein files, no one's gone, hey, what happened to Diddy?
That's funny. You're right. Nobody asked about him. He's in jail.
Yeah,
right?
he's
So
been in
they
jail.
let him be in
But
jail.
nobody cares because there's so many other things going on. So-and-so got fired. So-and-so else got fired. Now we have apparently cross-dressing husband of
Christino.
And now that's a headline.
I couldn't give a rat's ass about whether or not her husband.
Who cares if he's a freak behind doors? That's his business. I'm like, but we're using it.
Why that came out now? I'm like, did she get mad about something? And someone's like, I'm going to fix her wagon and I'm going to send this
It's
out.
all about trying to portray your character as something that it wasn't.
Right. But she wasn't cross-dressing. So
no,
it doesn't matter.
And everybody has a skeleton or two, even if you don't know it. That you just maybe don't want people to know that you know. But
well, I don't have any skeletons, folks. Any skeletons I have, I might say what they are.
Yeah, but to whatever that is, like you may have done something that you thought, oh, that's just play.
Nothing, and
somebody else thinks, how? You know what I mean? Because they're way more of a conservative person, not politic-wise, but just in general.
Oh, I'm sure they could use our podcast and snip my stuff.
Oh, they can flip this up all day and go, oh,
they've gotten.
He's that, she's this, and what does he know, and what does she know? That's what they always do, but they do that to a lot of people who podcast. Yeah. You're gonna have haters. I'm
not afraid. You know, once you get cancer, you're not afraid of anything anymore. I mean,
Drewski dressed up like Erica Kirk and whiteface.
I didn't know that.
You didn't see that?
I didn't see that.
Drewski, he's a comedian, super funny. Dresses up and remember the movie White Chicks?
Yes, are you serious?
He did that, but he looks extremely close to Erica Kirk and dressed like Erica Kirk would dress and would do things that Erica Kirk would do, like stare with his big eyes like you're getting mesmerized, right? And I don't remember how many, multi-million views on that skit. And now they're like, oh, he's insensitive and this and that and the other. But then other people were laughing because they thought it was fun because he's a comedian.
Oh, so we're going to digress here because you brought up Erica Kirk.
Right.
So I've worked really hard not to seem like a conspiracy theorist ever, because that was always MAGA stuff, right? Like they were like, oh, they cheated. Oh, they did this. Oh, they did that. So I was like, I root everything in fact, right? But you got me thinking so all these people are suddenly coming out and saying the bullet
didn't match the
gun
right
that killed Charlie Kirk.
And then they're showing the videos of the guys giving signals like baseball, and then all of a sudden they're like,
you gotta watch it.
Oh, I've seen it. Yeah.
Very and I mean to the viewer people too, or listeners, you gotta look at that if you get a chance to see. Because you told me, you said, hey, you should look at that. You know, Candace Owens, who was friends with him, right?
Uh-huh.
Really conservative podcaster,
right?
And she was all about, like, she was really good friends with him, and she really was laying down the gauntlet, saying he was murdered by somebody other than
the guy they pinned to be the shooter,
right? So so I started watching the videos, and I have to say, that I thought, oh my God,
Mhm.
maybe they're right about that. Maybe that, and I, this is going to turn into another juicy clip.
That's what we're doing.
Because
The juice.
I'm starting to like think, well, let me go look. This is what liberal people do. Just wait. we go and investigate. We go look. We keep looking. We keep looking, and then we weigh the situation, and then we're either on board or not. But based on what I saw, and I have the original footage when he was shot, right? Not doctored. It was taken from the news, and a bunch of people in my Signal group, we have a Signal group, posted it, and I was shocked. I was like, "Who posted this?" Because I didn't know what I was watching, and then I literally saw him get shot, and it was really, really hard to make amends with my mind about that because I could see it over and over again. But in the clip that I've now seen where they're like circling people's arms and this person picked this up and this person put something in their pocket, I compare it with that video. And sure enough, if they're not doing exactly what they're circling, like signals, and it looks like it's coordinated, so then you have to say, who did that? Why did they do that?
Why?
But I think that this administration and President Obama said this is the most corrupt administration that's ever led the United States. And I believe that to be true. 100% true. To the point where I think that this president will make people disappear. I think he does stuff like that. I think when people are silenced, I think they're threatened. I think that happens.
Right.
And I think that that he does not value others and their lives. I don't think he does. I think he's incapable of doing that. And that's thanks to his father. His father was not a nice person, but his father was a little bit smarter than Trump. He stayed away from the limelight because he wanted to continue to do whatever it was he wanted to do from a corrupt standpoint.
Right.
And it's why his brother, who was a decent person and he wanted to be a pilot, and his father, Fred Trump, said, "Oh, you want to drive something like the buses in the air or some awful thing like, he's like, oh, you want to drive the air buses, like he was equating being a pilot with driving a bus."
Gotcha.
And said something derogatory and was really unkind to Trump's brother, and it ultimately ended in the death of his son.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't know that he took his life. I think he drank himself to death or something. He died from alcoholism or something terrible like that. But this is where the president of the United States comes from. He comes from a family where his mother was just about incapable of managing, like taking ownership of her children and what happened to them. And which I think is sad because I'm a lioness. If my husband, who I love deeply, ever came after my son and did something that would make him feel less than, I don't know what I would do, but
you would go into mother mode. And women in the lion's pride are the hunters.
Yeah, I would definitely stand in front of that.
Right.
And I think that's important. And I think people with character will stand in front of things that are wrong, that are morally wrong. And that's why I think there's such a divide in this country, because there's a huge morality problem.
Yep.
I agree with that. It's a really big problem. I mean, we see it every day just walking around. But I think the morality problem, when your president has a very low morality threshold, it tells everybody else that they can too, and they can be assholes about it too, which really makes me mad. And I use the word asshole very sparingly, but I really think that defines very clearly what happens to some people. I think that the people that still hang on to him identify with him, and you have to have a certain amount of assholiness just to hang on to that.
Right. Yeah.
To see yourself in a person that's so despicable. The only thing I can think is they're not exposed, or they choose not to be exposed to the very things that he's doing.
So they also see it. They just see it differently, right?
How can you see it differently when you're calling people names,
Because
making fun of?
It's no different than a bully who goes, "I'm better than you. I can say whatever I want."
But this is what I don't understand. What I don't understand. So I'm gonna steal a little bit from Meryl Streep, and I remember, which I think it might have been the Golden Globes, that she said it was either the Academy Awards or the Golden Globes. You guys can get all crazy on the other side about like me bringing up Hollywood people, but they're people too. They just entertain you for a living. So get out of your way if you want to watch movies anymore. Learn to love the movies and like leave their politics out of their movie. And they have every right to speak about their politics, just like anybody else.
Anybody with any job, period, can say what they want about their politics. There's no rule like because you're a celebrity, you can't have an opinion about politics. Like you're dumb and all you know how to do is act or dribble a basketball. It's still different than the banker who's in politics.
Yeah.
Or a lawyer who's in politics, or anybody who wants to talk about their politics.
Well, it gets my feathers ruffled because there seems to be some sort of idea, and just to be clear, some actors or Hollywood type don't tell you their politics, so you don't know which way they lean.
Right.
But those that do, like Meryl Streep, but I have a lot of respect for her as a human being because she didn't call anybody names. She was like explaining. I'll never forget this as long as I live. I posted it a couple times because I thought it was really profound that she was like, it should, she talked about how Trump made fun of a disabled reporter.
I remember that.
And in all my life, like, I always think that human decency, like if you have a child who isn't what you consider like perfect in terms of their cognitive abilities or their ability to control their body, you feel very protective of that. And I just thought, what happened to a certain part of America that they would think that was okay to make? We've always been a country that doesn't make fun of the weakest of us. Usually what we do is we surround the weakest of us with love and compassion.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't have to be super overt, but I just think that was a line that people wouldn't cross. And once he crossed that.
Well, and they made it okay that he crossed it. That behavior wouldn't be accepted in any institution. Right? No. If you were a keynote speaker at Harvard and you were like, oh, and then you started doing retarded arms and hands or whatever you thought that was supposed to be to that person, they would let you go or they would revoke your status.
They sure would.
Right.
You would do it in any sort of, like, you'd be in the HR department of any one of the companies that I work for. Not only would you be in the HR department, it probably might render yourself fired.
Right.
Because it would be, one, you did it publicly. And two, there was absolutely no idea that you hadn't done it. And because of the laws and the rules at corporations, because there's a lot of rules about like whether you can hire disabled people. Like whenever you fill out an application, it will say, do you have a disability? But there's also a clause in there that says that you cannot be discriminated against if you say yes. Now, I can't tell you how many times, because guess what? Cancer is considered a disability. Did you know that? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, nope, don't have a disability.
Yeah, because they'll use it against you. They'll use everything against you.
Yeah, I just say no because I don't have any evidence of the disease. But, so I feel confident in doing that. But it's kind of crazy that normal people before Trump would have all sat on the same side on that.
Right.
They would have sat on the same side. They would have been, that's horrible. That person's terrible. They should be fired. But now we've got a chunk of people who think that's okay amongst other stuff, like the whole Billy, what was his name from Access Hollywood? Billy something. I can't remember.
Access Hollywood.
Billy, all I want to say is Billy Barnes. That's not his name.
Right.
Anyway, he got canned from his job at Access Hollywood. He's now on TV again.
All right.
And Trump got the presidency.
Right.
And to me, like when you start talking, and this is why it's not inconceivable for some of us to think, Epstein files, Trump. If you can say you can grab a woman by the PUSSY, and when you're famous, they'll let you do anything. That's not a far cry from, I can do whatever I want with women. And if they look a little bit on the young side, oh, well, Nobody's going to know. I'm on a plane on an island.
Right.
And how are people, where's the police force on the island? There isn't any.
Yeah.
You know, and so when people start making the, you know, and they're like, oh, that's ridiculous. Like, oh, Elizabeth.
They're like, is it?
Yeah, Elizabeth House.
Is it? Secret societies and all these kinds of things. Is it?
Yeah.
Because when you are above the law or when you control the law, people will do all kinds of things because they already have these weird fetishes already. And if you've done everything, you're like, what else can I do? I'm going to drink goat blood, whatever it may be.
It's
right?
gross. It's super gross. Like today on The View, and I watched The View, and I'm not going to be ashamed of it. I watched The View, and they have Elizabeth Hasselhoff on there. Is that her name? Hasselbeck.
Hasselbeck.
Yeah. Yeah, Hasselbeck. Yeah, Hasselhoff. Sorry to the Kit Car.
Sorry, Knight Rider.
Knight Rider. Hasselbeck, and she's a conservative, and she was dancing around Trump being in the Epstein files. Like she was turning herself into a pretzel, but she was more willing to let Clinton and Hillary. This is the part that kills me. Hillary Clinton was not on Epstein's island ever. She didn't know. And let me tell you, do you think that Hillary Clinton would have been, well, let's do that? No. Y'all tried to give her a Pizzagate, and that was the most ridiculous thing. I implore people who thought that was a real thing to go see if that address has a basement. It does not. So the whole porn thing in a basement that didn't exist because the foundation underneath it didn't have a basement. So I mean, it was just the most ridiculous thing. And today she was like trying to give shade to Hillary Clinton. I thought, stop being a dumb woman that puts
because you have to
bad
get back.
place.
So
I don't like
anybody who's still bringing up, to me, I think it's funny when they still bring up Hillary like she's controlling the world without you. You know what I mean? So the woman was never president, right? But we always have to pull Hillary into this box like all these things happened because of her. Now, whether they happen or not, we don't know. But are we still complaining about how many years ago? Like, it's like complaining about the Obamas when they that was what? How many years ago?
I don't know.
We've had
full presidency, so
over 8 years, right? So just like on day one, I'm going to repeal Obamacare and we're going to have Trump care. Never got it.
No, because he's the Great Oz. Everybody. That's
what happened to those things. Like, I was curious whether that was going to be better. I was like, well, because if it's better, I'll take that.
He only had a concept.
Okay.
Do you know how many concepts I've had that have turned into nothing?
Right.
I'm sure everybody else has had them too.
Right.
So when somebody stands up on the political stage, he knows he's going to be asked about that because that was like his thing. Because he only cares about destroying things that were created by people that he doesn't like. And let me tell you, he doesn't like black people. So for those black people who think, yay, Trump, why don't you go see what happened to Colin Powell's, statue bust at the White House? Go see where it is now.
Yeah.
Why don't you look at the numerous
I think
people
he likes,
let go?
I think this is just a character thing, because like I said, I'm in the middle about all this stuff. But Trump likes black people like some of my white friends' parents like black people until you start dating their daughter. They think you're cool. Oh, he's such a cool. He's cool, man. He's cool. He's got soul. I wish I had soul. I could only do my dance, and he can do all kinds of dances, right? And they're cool with you. They're gonna tell you how great you are, and you're such a good person. And then the minute you start dating their daughter,
but why don't they look at you like, are you a good person? I'm just gonna say this because I'm a huge fan of him. I'm a fan of just about this guy's like the multi-talented guy in so many different respects. But you're also a really decent, good human being because people can be crap and he still can rise above it. And I cannot. I cannot. I get mad. I get mad with injustice and with things. You want to be my friend because even if I don't agree with you politically, if something bad happened to you, I'd be the person who'd stop on the road and help you.
Exactly.
I would. I wouldn't go, excuse me, you're bleeding there. Are you a Republican or a Democrat? Oh, sorry, you're a Republican. I'm going to drive on by.
Right.
That is not something that enters my sphere.
Right.
Now, if I'm talking to you about politics and you're going bonkers or you're freaking out because one of your family members doesn't agree with you, I mean, I have a bunch of family members in our family that don't agree with us at all, with my husband and my political view, and it's shocking to me too. I won't go into it, but I love them.
Yeah.
I love them, and when and if they ever get sick, my husband and I will be right there to help. Right there, without question, because I love them. You know, I don't like their politics. In fact, when they bring it up, it gets me kind of worked up.
It gets under your skin.
I need my fan, this little chunky thing. I need to start blowing my fan on it, because now whenever I get mad, I get a little hot flash.
Yes.
But
We need them as a sponsor.
yes, yeah, the best fan ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I can't say that happens in the reverse if they're MAGA. I think there's the thing that I think about MAGA, people who are super rooted in that, I think the reason they love Trump is because they think he's for them. And I think they see themselves in him. And he's winning. So as long as he's winning, they're like, we're on team win. The problem is it's starting to lose. So what you're watching now is like fractions of his support, like peeling off.
Not black or white. It's not black or white with Tim Stevenson and Diane Blakely.